tell me I can't fry chicken. I can fry up some chicken. Look at that. Wait till it's done. Look at that chicken. Colonel Sanders and Popeye and Mr. Lee had better watch their back. Hey, Bone Daddy, do you think our big cow in Berea is related to the big cow in your video? Our big cow, there actually used to be two of them in town, and they set out in front of the restaurants at two truck stops called Bluegrass Inn or Bluegrass Cafe or something like that back in the day. And this cow actually sat in a yard uptown for a long time before getting moved down here. Really, it says no bull, but that don't look like a bull, does it? You can see back there. Ignore my dirty windshield. Yeah, I don't think technically that cow is a bull, or it's advertised as a bull, but bulls still have their dangly bits in the back, and that one don't. So I don't think he counts as a bull. Or she could be a heifer. You never know. Right now I'm going to go uptown and we're going to stop at Chestnut Street Square, and I'll give you a quick little history lesson on two interesting things about Berea. Now this is Chestnut Street Square in the middle of downtown, uptown, whatever you want to call it, in Berea. The first thing I want to point out is this plaque, and I hope you can see it. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do a little voicing over in here because there was a lot of loud traffic, stereos, and motorcycles and mufflers went by while I was filming this. But this plaque marks the spot of the old Berea Graded and Berea High School. Now, the graded school had been here for a long time before the high school ever showed up, and the story of how the high school got established is quite colorful and can be a little complicated. So, to make it easier to explain what happened and how the school got its very strange nickname of Fruit Jar High, I have created a very accurate animation to explain the situation. In the 1920s, the Kentucky legislature passed a law that said every city in Kentucky that had a grade school had to have a high school, and Berea did not. So the school board, 5 people, there were 3 in favor of building a high school in Berea. There were 2 against, but one of the ones against was the chairman of the board, and he did not vote on such matters. So when the vote was taken whether or not to build the school, the final tally was 3 in favor, 1 against. The issue looked to be settled until a month later at the next school board meeting when something very strange happened. One of the school board members who was in favor of the high school was absent. So, the board chair, who couldn't vote before, resigned as chair so he could vote. This meant one of the members who was in favor of the school became board chair and could no longer vote, and a new vote on whether or not to build the high school was called. This meant there was only one school board member in favor of the school left at the meeting, and he completely panicked. So in order to stop the meeting, he grabbed the minute book and took off running for the door, because once the minute book was gone, the meeting was officially over and no vote could take place. In order to stop him from getting out the door with the minute book, one of the members of the school board who was against the high school picked up a large glass fruit jar that was being used as a vase and launched it at the man's head. It cracked him in the back of the head and knocked him unconscious in front of everybody. So obviously, this new vote never took place and Berea High School was built. And from that point forward, it was known locally as Fruit Jar High, or just the Fruit Jar. And it stood here until the early 1970s when it was torn down. A new school was built to replace it that opened in 1969, and I'll do a story on it at some point in the future because there's a lot can be said about that school. There are two places in the ground up here that are brick, and these are the original bricks from the high school after they tore it down. Now it's interesting because this park was built a good, 30, 40 years after the high school was torn down. So the question is, how did anybody still have the original bricks? I know who had them. I'm never going to say because I don't know if they're supposed to have them or not, but they donated them back when they were building the park up here to be put in the ground. But if you're watching this person who had the bricks, I will never tell on you. Now this sculpture is in honor of John G. Fee, who founded Berea in 1855. I don't know if I mentioned it in my other videos, but Berea was built as the first interracial and co-educational school in the South, and this was in the years leading up to the Civil War. The big tall guy on the left is John G. Fee. On the right is Elizabeth Rogers. She was the first teacher in Berea, and then there's a desk. And if you'll notice, the students are mixed race. There's a black student sitting next to a white student. She has features of both, and that was done on purpose because the town was built, you know, as this experiment where black people and white people could be educated together. If you look real close at this little girl, I don't know if you can read it or not, but she's pointing to the line in the Declaration of Independence where it says all men are created equal, which is really interesting. And on the desk there's books and feathers. Also, if you notice, the back of her head is dented, and within the first year of this statue being put in place, a $150,000 statue, which didn't include installation, she was stolen, ripped up from the ground and taken off, and people were pretty ticked off about it, naturally. And what happened was the people who stole her took her out into the country and threw her out of the car, and that's why she has the big dent in the back of her head. And since then, this little girl's name is Amber. She was kind of named Amber after Amber Alerts since she was kidnapped. And the people who stole her wound up confessing, and there's a whole big rest of the story to that one that I won't share right now, but maybe later in a live chat or something. And this is a look at the square. This is where our farmers market is on Saturdays too. We have a really cool farmers market. I'm glad they're finally getting back open, but that's it from Chestnut Street Square, and that's it for this video. Everybody take care, be safe, and remember, whenever a door closes, open it back up. That's how doors work. Bye.